Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Restored to More. We are so excited for our guest today, Travis and Adelle Graham.
Travis and Adelle make up what is called the noble marriage. We're so excited to have you guys. A little bit about them. So they've been married for 16 years and have a blended family with 3 children and 2 grandchildren. Their marriage was impacted through past pain, trauma, and abuse from their past that contributed to addictions and issues that they have both worked through together. These could include alcohol, drugs, infidelity, pornography, shopping, eating, poor communication, manipulation, and unforgiveness. Today, they are YouTubers, speakers, authors, and coaches who are inspiring marriages globally through improved communication and helping couples discover true love and intimacy as God intended. Love that intro, you guys. And that's what you guys do. And it is powerful, powerful stuff. We have had the pleasure of meeting you guys and being introduced to you. Travis and I are on a Marco Polo group with 3 other guys. And it is so awesome to talk on a regular basis and just get to know you more, man. You have such a heart after Jesus. I know Charity and Adelle have also gotten to connect and just talk. And I'm just grateful. I'm just grateful for what you guys do. You have a powerful story and testimony, and we can't wait to dive into it.
Thank you. And we're so grateful for you guys. We were talking about, engaging with you guys on the air, and we have seen a lot of the stuff that you guys have done, and we're inspired by you and how you minister to others. And you're really doing kingdom work. You're really helping others find hope in a hopeless world. So thank you for letting us be here, and thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You're welcome, and thank you. Well, guys, without further ado, why don't we just jump into your guys' story today? I mean, you and what the listeners should know is that we had a really hard time picking a topic for Travis and Adelle because they have so many areas in their lives in which God showed up. And we're not going to get into all of it today. Maybe we'll have them back on to share a part 2 and a part 3 and part 4. But today we're going to talk about infidelity, and we're even talking about grieving, which is just, oh my gosh, so powerful. Maybe Chair and I will share a little bit of our story of grieving. We're really excited to hear your story about grieving and even just the story of infidelity that you guys want to talk about. So why don't you take it away and tell us that story, even go into the background a little bit, and how did this kind of creep in and get into the life? Kind of go from there. We'd love to hear that.
Yeah. So when we were talking about our story, we were talking like, man, there's hours and hours and hours of content we can talk about in multiple different realms. And so to really get into the grieving side of it, which I think is really important right now, is I'll set it up with a little bit of a background of about 4.5 years ago, Adelle discovered that I had been unfaithful years prior in our marriage. And during that time, I had an option because she found out on social media. And so during that, as a person who was unfaithful to their spouse, or maybe their spouse found them looking at pornography, or it could be any things that ruins the trust of the marriage, there is an opportunity we have to do one of 2 things. We can either have disclosure, that is, I'm going to speak about the things, or there's discovery, and that means she needs to do a lot of work to find out what happened. And there's a major difference between the 2, and there's a one that builds trust, and there's one that tears trust down. That is, in my disclosure, she has an opportunity to have trust built through my disclosure. If there's discovery, there's an opportunity for her to lose trust because she's having to do the work, the investigation, to find out what happened.
So good. So true.
Dramatic difference between the 2 of those. And it was my choice that when this happened, I was honest, but not fully. And what that did was it created opportunity for her to get some information, have a lot of pain, start to get some healing. And then I gave her full disclosure.
And I'll share just a little bit about what that was like for me. I had a lot of red flags throughout our marriage that I chose to ignore. I was very much a perfectionist and lived the Instagram life of my life is perfect, but behind closed doors, I was really hurting and lonely. And in 2018, we were coming off of a 5-year period where there was addictions involved. So there was a pain medication addiction and alcohol, pornography. I had shopping addiction and some eating disorders, drinking wine a lot. And so we were coming off of a really painful period in our life where I was questioning if I wanted to be married at all at that point. And I just love our story so much because having gone through that, that was really, really tough. And I was like, if I can get through that, I can get through anything. Mm-hmm. And I remember sitting in my therapist's office and just telling her, I just don't love him and I'm loyal and I don't know how to make this work. I wasn't attracted to him. He had lost so much weight through the addictions that I really didn't recognize him anymore. And so I was dealing with just a lot of like my own unsettled emotions about our relationship. And then he went to rehab in December of 2016 and January of 2017. So for 2 months, he was in rehab. And when he came out of rehab, he was a different person. Like he was walking different. His eyes looked different. He looked like he had life again. And that gave me a sliver of hope that, you know, this can get better. We can get through this. And so throughout the year of 2017, it was kind of up and down because his healing, he would get healing and then he would go backwards. And I think that pain medication in itself is just so destructive because your brain becomes so dependent on it. And so I watched him go through just all different levels of healing, physically and mentally and spiritually. And then in 2018, in April, he went on a men's hike and it was with our church and I did not want him to go. I was actually like a little bit pissed off that he was going and leaving me at home with Haven and our business and all the things. And so he went, and when he came back, he was sharing with me that he found Jesus on that mountain and he was baptized. And it was just like something I never expected to come out of his mouth. And I was just like, oh, okay. So like, I'm really interested now to see what the next couple of months are going to look like. And so over the next, like, we all summer long, all the way up until October, we fell in love again. Like we had this burning desire to get to know each other more. And we had passion showing back up. I was finding myself attracted to him again. And like all the things that I had prayed for, I was seeing God answer those things during that time. And so leading up, I found out October 3rd of 2018, and it was through Facebook. I had a friend that texted me and she was like, girl, you need to, well, I had posted a long post. It was our 12th anniversary, September 30th. And I posted about how loyal my husband is and just how grateful for the 12 years that we've been married. And she was like, you need to go to your Facebook like ASAP. And there's a comment on there. And I just like, my heart, I knew like something was not good. I didn't know what, but I just had a sense that something was wrong. And so when I went and checked it, and it was this girl saying, you just don't know your husband like you think you do. And I remember having this moment of like, this cannot be happening right now. Number one, being a perfectionist, it was out there for the world to see for probably 24 hours. And that in itself was absolutely devastating for me, that other people would know and see that kind of thing before me. And so I remember looking at him and asking him, has he been unfaithful? And I knew in my heart, like I said, there were red flags like all throughout our marriage that I really chose to ignore because I didn't want to deal with the uncomfortable feelings that it was bringing up. I would rather avoid those things and just hope that, I never find out about whatever is going on, because if I don't have to deal with it, it's not there.
Wow.
And so when he said he had been unfaithful, it just wrecked me. Like my heart literally fell apart. I was in a just fetal position for hours and hours that day of just wailing and crying. And I felt like my whole world was crashing down on me. I really did. And the reason I just wanted to pause on that is because anyone who's been through betrayal of any kind, there is such a great loss. There is that loss of the marriage that I thought I had was so great. And I didn't know that's what was going on for me. I was very unaware. I just knew I was in severe pain. And when I say severe pain, it was like a literal pain in my heart that felt like stabbing. And I remember him saying, God's told me we're going to get through this. We're going to be okay. And I'm like, really? God told you that? Like, he didn't speak to me about that.
Wow.
And it was either later on that day or a day or two later, because all of that time frame was very foggy for me. But I was just crying out to God. That was the first thing that I just knew that I got through all that other stuff. But I was like, there is no way I can get through this on my own. I knew that it was going to have to come from somewhere else, not within me, because I just didn't have it in me. And so I remember just calling out to God, like, I need you to help me and to give me the strength. I need you to guide me like every step of the way, because I don't know how to do this. And he told me, if you do the work and you do the work to heal fully, I want to use your story to help other people heal and be restored in their own marriages. And I felt kind of the same way towards God as I did when Travis said it. Like, really? I am in pain here. Like, and you're telling me like about a vision for the future that I really didn't want to be a part of at that time. I wanted to really sit in the pain that I was in. And I immediately reached out to our therapist, and what she told me was just so impactful for me. Is she shared with me that I was grieving. And I didn't look at it as that, because I had anger, I had like hatred, I had jealousy, I had a lot of things going on for me. And the last thing I was thinking was grieving. And so when she told me that, I was just so impacted and realized that there's a process to grieving. And one of the things she said to me was, you've got to really allow the emotions to be there. Because if I run from those emotions, they're going to persist on. And avoiding emotions is never healthy, because they do resurface later on. But by being really present with what I was feeling and allowing myself to feel what I was feeling, she told me that's okay. It's okay. And it's going to be like a roller coaster, and you're going to have to just ride that roller coaster. And she was really right, because it literally was like a roller coaster. I would have one moment where I am like in the depths of despair and sadness and sorrow, to screaming anger, just raging thoughts that were just going a mile a minute, and then back down to just in the depths of despair and crying. And I had never experienced anything like that. And when she said, you have experienced a really great loss in your life, it just made me feel like seen, I think. that
Wow.
somebody sees that I'm hurting and it's okay for me to be here
Mm.
and
Wow.
really experience that.
Wow.
Wow.
That's so powerful. Thank you so much for sharing all
Yes,
that.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people that we have on the show, everybody adds their different perspective and what they went through. And there's so much, but specifically grieving, I think is so important to healing in the process. And, you know, some listeners are probably like, grieving, like what? Like, isn't that only when someone dies? And it's not true, because for us in our situation, we were grieving over the loss of a marriage that we thought we had, right? And so that's what we're grieving over, is just this whole marriage and what we thought was there, and the lies and the deceit. And it is so important, in order for us to heal, to be able to grieve that. And I would just love to know even further, even more, what that process looked like for you together. I mean, did you both grieve? Did you grieve together? Did you grieve separately?
And can I ask, because it sounds like here you are in the fetal position, Adelle, and you're in so much pain. And just based off your comment, again, I don't know, I'd love to hear more about that. It sounds like, Travis, some part of you is like, it's going to be okay. Like, I don't know, like, was that the fixer in you that was like uncomfortable with the amount of pain that she was in? Was that you trying to like console her and be there for her, but not knowing how to do it? Or was that like, you know what, that's true, but I jumped the gun? I'd love to hear your take on that. Why do you think as men we respond that way? Because I think you're not alone in that. I know I've responded that way too, if I see charity in pain. For you, what was it that made you want to respond that way? And then absolutely your question of what did you guys do to start doing this grieving process together?
I think we can answer both the questions in one. I'll start with the way that I was participating in it, and then you can answer how you processed. We're about to do another video on this of, you know, my side of it and how I went through it, and maybe some great takeaways about like what would I do different in that. I would agree with you that there is a certain side of me that wants to fix it. Like, I have been dealing with the same stuff that she is now processing for years. For years, I've been dealing with the same demons in my head about the things that I've done and the consequences that go along with that. She just doesn't know about it.
Wow.
And so when it was revealed to her, my freedom came at her prison. And so I have been processing this, maybe poorly, but I've been processing it for a long time. And I would hope that she could get through it fast so that we can get to the other side, because I'm uncomfortable in feeling the feelings that I'm having. I'm uncomfortable because I don't want to feel those things. And there's an opportunity I have when I feel uncomfortable to shut her down, or be like, you know what, I did this, I'm going to endure this, but at some point you got to get over it. I could be that way, and it's very ineffective. What I did was I did have those feelings, but I didn't project those. I just sat with her in her pain, and whatever she was going through, she was going through. And I listened to her. I answered questions that she had. I was present with her. Even in the worst of that, I wanted to be present in that because I knew I was the source of the original pain. So I wasn't going to condemn her or judge her of how she processed it. I just wanted to be in there with it. And I wanted to be anywhere but there too.
Yeah.
So both of those are true. How I did it was just processed through with her, being like, I'm here. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say, but I'll be here as you have issues, if you have questions, or if you just want to yell, if you just want to talk, or and you did all those things. And I just sat there with her during it. I knew there's nothing I could do to fix it. I didn't offer, not that I remember, I don't think I offered suggestions because I don't know how to fix it. Other than, I guess she's just going to process through it somehow. That's the only thing I had going on for me. Do you have anything to add for me that I'm not thinking of?
Well, you had been trying to figure out how to tell me since the hike.
Great. Okay. So obviously, I want to tell her these things. It has interrupted my health, sleep, well-being. Secrets make you sick.
Mm-hmm.
And the revelation of secrets is the path to healing.
Mm.
And I had been in secrets since I was a kid. And I liked that feeling of keeping secrets and having secret life, and because it gave me some sort of adventure, maybe, or it gave me some sort of good feelings to have secrets. However, they just weren't effective for me to keep those.
Mm-hmm. And so what you had shared with me is that because you had been trying to figure out and asking God, like, how do I go about telling her? There's
I
no
forgot
good
what you
way.
asked. I forgot what you asked. Yes.
There's no good way.
No,
to
there's
do
not
it.
a good
Totally.
way.
Totally.
What I would tell any man out there that's looking for, like, I have secrets and I want to reveal this secret of maybe pornography, or maybe this addiction that I have, or maybe I've been unfaithful. I want to share this with my wife because I'm committed to doing something different. My advice is seek godly counsel from someone who loves Jesus and loves you, and can give you a path to a next step. What I don't want you to hear is you need to delay, or you need to come up with the alternatives to say it. The truth needs to come out. The truth will set you free, but there is a way that you can present the truth in a safe, effective environment. Not that won't hurt your spouse, because there's going to be hurt, but that will be in a way that will create healing rather than more damage.
So I think he had the time to process, so he could see that we were going to get through this. And I was like, not ready for that.
Yeah.
And then he had mentioned at the very beginning that, I thought we went through disclosure, and I thought that he had told me everything. And unfortunately, he had gotten advice from somebody who said, infidelity is infidelity, and the details, you don't need to, that's going to injure her more. And so, stay away from sharing those kinds of things, and only share what she absolutely needs to know to move on. And I totally disagree with that advice. And that's what really got us in that predicament, was he shared what he felt like I needed, and then more came out.
Can I ask you, Adelle, what that was? Was it like, I struggled with pornography or lustful thoughts, or what was it he was advised to share? What did you choose to share? And then looking back, Travis, what do you wish you had shared?
It was the quantity of the women that I had been with. And looking back, what I wish I would have done was immediately been truthful and honest about everything. And it would have been more effective for me and for you and for our healing in the long run.
Yeah, there's a big difference between me processing, thinking there was one affair, and then finding out that affairs started early in our marriage, and there was a period of time where that happened. That's a whole nother healing. And because there was a month between, there was a little bit of trust that had started to begin healing and conversation. And I still felt like I wasn't getting the truth. So I was having to do a lot of discovery, asking a lot of questions, and trying to figure things out on my own, and doing research behind his back and things like that, which is exhausting, and it's really hard to go through. So then to find out a month later there was more, it absolutely wrecked me again.
I can feel that when you share it. I think we all can picture like that actually heart pain that you described.
Yeah.
And it's just devastating.
Yeah, it makes us
Yeah,
feel like square one.
it does. And I feel like it was even below square one, like if there is such a thing. So I was like, okay, like if we're gonna move forward, which I don't need at that point, I was like, now I want a divorce. I was just so shocked. And I just felt like our whole life was a lie at that point. So then I was questioning like literally everything and what is true. I mean, who are you? I really struggled with that. But we started getting counseling right away. We were already in counseling from the first disclosure, and we had had a month of that. And he had actually went to our therapist and said, there's more, and I don't know how to tell Adele. And so in a safe place, she was able to navigate through the real disclosure portion. And it was very helpful for me. He wasn't actually there. It was just me and her. And I was able to really process and allow myself to feel the pain that I was going through again. And I knew that when I left her office, I knew that it was everything, because I had made it very clear at that point, if I find anything else out after this point, like there won't be a you and me. I need full disclosure. I need full honesty from you if we're going to ever make this work. So I knew that he had done the work to make sure that was true. And the weeks and months that followed that, if you've ever been through betrayal, there are a lot of questions, a lot of questions. And they plague your mind. They really distract you from just the everyday life, to the point where you're just not even present. And one thought, one question, and this is how the enemy works, because once disclosure has happened, he knows he can get the betrayed spouse stuck in all the questions. Because one thought or one question would lead me down this very, very dark path of I'm making up my own scenarios of what could have happened. And I started recognizing that what I was creating in my mind most likely was worse than the truth. And that's how I really gauged what questions I asked and which questions weren't important. Because I feel like there are some questions that can lead you down a path that makes healing a lot harder. And then there's other questions that are very healing for the spouse that's been betrayed, so that I just know the truth, because I can deal with the truth. And what I can't deal with is all of the scenarios that my mind is making up anyways. And so we had months of questions. And I think the hardest part for me, because this was the first time he's being asked all these questions, there was a lot of, I don't know. And that was really hard. How do you not know the answers to these questions? And a lot of them was, why did you cheat on me? Why were you unfaithful? What's wrong with me? And what we see now, looking back, those questions are just never going to satisfy the spouse that's been betrayed. It wasn't satisfying me. It was making me feel worse, especially when the answer was, I don't know. And I really had to understand that he really does not know, because he hadn't really thought through the why behind what led him there. And that's been a journey that we've been on for almost 5 years now, of really finding out why and learning that it's so much a heart issue. And it started long before our marriage. And that has given me just so much peace of knowing like what he did had everything to do with his heart and nothing to do with me. Although I wanted to take all the blame, I wanted to make it all about me. There's something wrong with me. I'm not good enough. I'm not wanted. I'm not important. I'm not valued. And that was me taking on that responsibility of his actions. And none of those things are true. And I wear a bracelet every single day that tells me I'm pursued, I'm beautiful, I'm loved and chosen by God, because the enemy wanted to tell me all of the opposite. And I wanted to go there with it. It was very easy to go there. And so over the years, I've learned the why and the understanding behind all the things that happened in our marriage. And long before our marriage, we have several videos on our YouTube channel that really give the background story of how things ended up the way they did.
Wow.
And it makes a lot of sense to me exactly why things happened the way they did. And it's actually made me love him more, in a sense of really understanding and knowing him, and that the enemy just had a really, really big grip on his life. And it took him choosing Jesus in his life to get freedom from that. And then over the years, more and more freedom as we discover more about ourselves.
So powerful.
So powerful.
Thank you for sharing that. I hope people go check out your YouTube. We're going to have you at the end of this. Make sure we're going to post stuff in the show notes of where to find all your guys' stuff for sure, because you guys have been creating some incredible things for people. Travis, I know it was on your heart big time to talk about the grieving side of this. And it's so hard because, like you said, there's so much for you to share. I have like 100 questions in my head about your story, and I want you to dive deeper into it. And I think your story is what people relate to, that pain that you were sharing, the confusion. And I think what you just shared, Adelle, is so powerful. So many wives tell us all the time, I just want to know why. And the guy's like, I don't know. And I think you could do a whole podcast just on that. So thank you for sharing that. I know there's a lot of journey. Travis, you talked about coming alongside Adelle in the grieving period, in the grieving process. What was that like for you guys? If you could just kind of walk us through the stages. I know people have said there's 5 stages of grief that they go through, and I don't know if it relates to that or if it's like, there was a couple really main stages we had to work through. What did that look like for you guys and for the grieving process?
And I just want to add one question to your question. Is we have a lot of couples come to us and talk to us about how specifically the husband doesn't know how to be there for his wife. And I think one of the main reasons that they say is because the emotions that you had said you sat with Adelle, what it does for them is it makes them feel so much shame. Like they're the worst person ever for making them feel this way.
Good, yeah.
And so it makes them not want to go there, or it leads them back to their addiction. And so I just want to add that, like, not only I want to know the process, but I also want to know, like, did you feel shame at all when she was doing that?
Yeah, great questions. So the process that we went through, we were very blessed, because when things like trauma, betrayal, maybe a death in the family, like life circumstances really doesn't come at opportune times where your kids are prepared in an area where they're taken care of, and you everything is perfect in life, and maybe you're off work for a period of time. But for us, I guess, it was in an opportune time, in a way that she was having her second back surgery at the same time all this is going on.
Which I thought was awful, but I see such a blessing in that now.
Yeah, and she needed care, and I'm the one to be here to care for her during that time. So she did not want me around her, and I needed to care for her because of the surgery. Wow. And so luckily we had a CEO that was running our company, and we were able to navigate this together, where we're together all day long, every day.
For 3 months.
For 3 months. And just a lot of conversations. It was a lot of, I don't have the words to say. I don't know what to say, but I can be there. And so that's what I did, was I was just there. I was there to serve her in ways that she needed. I was there to support her, or I would ask her, do you need a hug? Do you need to cry? What is it you need? And I was there to offer that. Now, I didn't have the words. She would ask questions, and I would answer the things that I could. or we would navigate maybe some conversation that we were having. Anything else you want to add?
Well, I just really appreciate his response to me, because like you guys, I mean, we hear all kinds of things that couples go through when betrayal is involved. And you mentioned shame. You know, guilt is for what I've done. Shame is who I am. And Travis, what was so great about that is he had already forgiven himself. And I think that's the biggest part, because shame is who I am when you don't forgive yourself. But when there's forgiveness there, which he had done the work prior to me finding out that he was going to tell me in the right opportune time, which there isn't a such thing. But that he had already worked through that. And so when I am processing and grieving and I'm going through the anger and depression and all of those things, when there's guilt involved, it's like we can talk about it, it's out here. But when there's shame involved, it's like a blanket, which makes the spouse who had the affair feel like we're talking about me. We're not talking about the actions and the behaviors that happened. We're talking about who I am as a shameful person. And so I think that's the difference between why he was able to sit there with me and we were able to process, because we were talking about something he felt guilty about versus shameful. And I think that was a lot of work on your part that I didn't even know was going on prior to finding out. Wow. And I think that shame definitely popped up because I would see it. It was very visibly obvious when shame was involved, because it even involves how the person sits. You sit there heavy and it's just so like gross. And it makes, when the spouse who's been betrayed, when I'm sharing what's going on for me, it makes it very difficult to see him wearing it. And then it's really hard to talk, really, really hard. And the spouse that's been betrayed really needs that safe place to be able to share and talk. And so because he had done that process, he was able to sit there and listen to me. Like you mentioned, there's 5 stages of grief, and I went through all 5. It's denial, anger, bargaining and seeking for a way out, depression, and then acceptance. And I got stuck in the anger. I was so angry, and I had never experienced an anger like that. And it was raging. It would take over my entire body. And I didn't know what to do with all that. And sometimes it came out in yelling and screaming. Who knows what our neighbors heard during that time. But he just made it a really safe place for me to ride that roller coaster. And I'm just so, so grateful for that, because I think that my process of grieving, it went really fast because he gave us to do that. And I remember a year later looking back and being like, it's been a year? Oh my goodness. Like I am starting to get to the point where I don't think about it every day. And I can be around him and enjoy his company. And that even began, I mean, that started happening even in the 3 months where I was stuck at home with him. I started to feel this closeness and this intimacy that was happening because he was there for me and he was present. So I see it as it was a beautiful time, even though I was in so much pain.
It's amazing how those can be both, right? They can be so incredibly painful and yet so incredibly healing at the same exact time. It reminds me of like even physical recovery. Like you're saying for back surgery, like PT is incredibly painful, and yet you're actually healing the very thing that's broken and it needs to come back while you are in pain. That is just very profound. Travis, Adele gave you a lot of props there, which is awesome to hear, because you do, as a man, I believe you have to get yourself to a place where you know this isn't who you are. And I think it's not just us getting ourselves to a place, but really allowing Jesus's identity of us to be accepted in our heart. I would love to hear what that process look like, because unfortunately what Charity says is more common than not, where a wife shares her pain and the guy's like, oh, I'm a horrible person. I love what you shared, right? Guilt is I did something wrong. Shame is I am wrong. I am bad. And I just think that I'd love to hear that process for you, Travis. I know we're running out of time here, but in a few minutes, what does that look like for you to, what are the bullet points there of what you had to do in order to not have that shame when she's sharing all of this pain? Because I think, like you said, that allowed you to sit in the suck. That's what we call it. Sit in the suck with her and not interpret that as I am shameful, and then go and continue to have unhealthy and unhelpful behaviors that destroy trust even more.
Yeah. And a quick few bullet points. The first one is I needed to know who my identity is in God. If I don't know who my identity is, like who am I or whose am I, then I am left with who other people identify me as or who I am thinking I am outside of Christ. And so I need to know my identity, because if not, then I'm going to be more susceptible to wear that shame blanket because I am wrong and I have done something, and I have in my actions, but it doesn't define who I am. So that would be the first step. And then the second step is my thoughts make me miserable. And I have to really get related to, I have 40 to 65,000 thoughts a day. And sometimes the quality of those thoughts, if I choose to hold on to them, they will make me miserable. And so I just need to put them in place and be like, okay, is this quality of thought, or is this thought, take the thought captive and see, is this truth? Is this really what I want to accept, or is it not? And then let that go, let it pass, because it's not, it's a lie. So those two things are probably the key things.
I think too, when you found Jesus in April, you really got that Jesus died on that cross to forgive you for all the things that you've done in your life.
Yeah, great point.
And I remember you sharing that if Jesus died for you to not have to live with those things, you feeling shame over it is like saying that wasn't worth it.
Yeah, great point.
And really taking it back from the cross. And so, you know, now we have had lots of conversations about that. However, I was not aware of all that, you know, in the middle of what we were dealing with, but we've had a lot of time now to really process how that all looked. And it was the forgiveness, because Jesus died to forgive him. And that doesn't mean he has to live with that hanging over his life anymore. And then I think for me, it was forgiveness too, because over my life was somehow I got that forgiveness is earned. There's things that have to be done in order to get forgiveness. And so I actually created a list, and it was a long list of consequences and all these things that he would have to do before I could forgive him. And that's very disempowering. And Dr. Gary Chapman actually told me, it was 3 days after I found out, he sat down with us, and we're just so blessed to have him. He said, forgiveness is a choice, and you're never going to feel like forgiving. If you wait on your feelings, you'll never forgive. And he said, but when you make a choice, your feelings will follow. Maybe not right away, maybe not a week from now, but eventually they'll catch up. And I remember feeling empowered by that feeling like, oh, I can make that choice that has nothing to do with him. And then he said, and I had heard this before, he said, unforgiveness is like drinking a poison, for me drinking the poison for him to die. It's actually killing me, not him. It might be making his life miserable, but it's really killing me from the inside out. And I was right then, because I was determined to heal. And I had friends tell me 10 years, 8 years, 5 years. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm going to work on it and I'm going to truly heal and I'm going to do it as fast as I can. And forgiveness was like one of the first things that I had to really come to grips with, making that choice for me and my healing.
Right.
You guys, what a powerful testimony. I feel like our listeners are going to reach out to you so fast and be like, wait, I need to hear more about this. I need to hear more about this. I need to hear more about this. I am so grateful for what you guys shared. And I love that you guys included that last part about forgiveness for both sides of you. That is so profound. And what I was gathering when you were saying that was how much forgiveness is an experience. It's a choice. It is something that we can't allow those feelings to really direct us in. And I just love that. Thank you for sharing all that. Well, you guys, as we wrap up this podcast, tell our listeners, please, how they can get a hold of your stuff, how they can reach out to you, get in contact with all you guys have created and done, and what's the best way to do so.
The absolute best way is The Noble Marriage on every platform. It's The Noble Marriage, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and our website, all The Noble Marriage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And please connect with us. We love connecting on social media, and follow us on our YouTube.
And we have a 5-part series on grief that just came out. The second part came out today.
Oh, that's awesome. We'll go check it out, everybody. Travis and Adelle, thank you for being with us. Yes. We're so grateful you guys got to be on our podcast, and we're so grateful we're friends. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for the invitation.